Day 34 of the Captain's Log, February 21st. Today we're supposed to be in Grand Cayman. It's 5 o'clock in the morning and I got a call from my officer on the bridge letting me know that they talked to the port and the port said that it does not look great for operations today. Grand Cayman is a tender port, which means we anchor off of shore. There's no pier to dock alongside, and we run tenders from the shore to ship and from the ship back to shore. And the tenders have limitations in which conditions they can operate in. Currently the winds are out of the north, 30 knots, and the sea conditions around 1.5 to 2 meters. We're not the only ship in port today. There are 3 other cruise ships, so I think we're all going to do the same thing, and that's make the approach, wait for the sun to come up so that we can see the operation, and we'll go from there.
Yes, good morning. We've got the tenders at the North Terminal here, and they're not riding that great. They're getting some reflection from the swell bouncing around in the harbour here. And with the prospect of the weather maybe even getting slightly worse, we've decided to cancel the call over.
It is never a dull moment on board. As you heard, we had to cancel our port call to Grand Cayman because the tenders couldn't operate. There are 2 tender ports in Grand Cayman. There's Georgetown, which is on the west side, which is where we were allocated, and there's a place on the south called Spots Bay. Now, Spots Bay is only for the smaller ships with less guests. So there were 2 ships of different companies that were allocated to operate there. They were able to get in today. And normally this wouldn't be a very awkward thing, but 2 hours after we started sailing to our next port of call with the intention of having a sea day, I got a call from the doctor saying we have a medical evacuation. We need to land a patient shoreside to a specialized facility. So we turn around and we're headed back to Grand Cayman to land the patient on a tender to take them shoreside for this treatment. And here's where it gets a little awkward, because we are going to land the guest in Spots Bay where these other 2 ships are operating. Meanwhile, we had to cancel our call to Georgetown because it's on the west side. It's exposed to the elements, and these 2 other smaller vessels can operate on the south side. So it does put us in a little bit of a pickle, a little predicament. I have made announcements on the public address system letting our guests and crew know, we couldn't do the tender operations from the west coast, but it is going to be interesting to see these other 2 ships being able to call that port because they're smaller and have less guests on board. We rock up and this is what the situation is. The 2 ships are using their dedicated shoreside tenders to tender to this pier, 1 tender per side. The tenders are split up between the 2 ships to accommodate their guest. We also take up a drifting position while we wait for the ambulance to arrive at the pier. In the meantime, one of the tenders is taken out of rotation from the other ships and sent to our ship to pick up the patient and take them shoreside. In the meantime, we're holding the ship in the drifting position using the oxypods and the thrusters. The whole operation took around 2 hours while we waited for the shoreside tender to return our doctor and shipboard security personnel. There's no space on the pier for all 3 tenders, so we needed to fit into their rotation so that the other ships could keep tendering. Once we got all our crew on board, we got underway and back out to sea.